Through all time, humanity has wondered if we are alone. Telescopes, probes, and satellites were sent to send messages beyond the stars. With each signal, a hope would reach the universe for a response. That day finally came when our response arrived. The world's most advanced radar systems had picked up this super-strong signal coming from deep space. This unusual mathematical sequence-delivered signal can be the answer that humanity has always waited for. Scientists, engineers, military leaders, and government officials all were on high alert. The first contact protocol was engaged. Globally, countries moved swiftly as a single entity. This was the moment to prove the fact that we were not alone in this universe, and that too after so much waiting. But things did not turn out exactly as everybody had anticipated. Preparations for first contact. The United States, along with Russia, China, and the European Space Agency, among others, joined forces hastily in a workforce to prepare. The signal was coming from an inbound ship approaching the solar system fast. Calculations showed that in about a week the ship was going to pass near Earth. However, no satellite or observation device could locate it. Only its signals could be tracked. More than that, this ship, invisible and only composed of a series of radio frequencies, could be something beyond human understanding in technological matters. The news of the contact blew up every day in the press, on TV, and in social media. People around the entire world speculated about the aliens that were to come. The scientists were rather optimistic. A majority in the field believed the aliens would be peaceful. The hope was pretty strong that this first contact would turn out to be a pivoting point in human history. Of course, not everyone was thinking along those lines. The military leaders did not know the intentions of the aliens. Mankind itself had caused enough damage throughout history to civilizations it had found. Why should this be an exception? Some countries, superpowers especially, moved their military forces secretly. Other defense systems were placed on satellites, and emergency plans were activated on land-based military bases. It appeared that war was going to erupt with the expected peace. 1 week later, the great day finally arrived, and the spaceship entered Earth's orbit, but this was not the scene that anybody had expected. There was no visible ship. It looked as though it was camouflaged in orbit by some sort of visual technology. Space agencies and giant telescopes were working at full stretch, but it could not be seen. Only the signal went ahead. Mankind began to sense they were up against a people with the most developed technology, way beyond human standards. The moment of contact. Finally, the signal started to be decoded using a number of sophisticated language decoding algorithms. Scientists worked week after week to find out whether the signals could mean anything. And finally, the message began to make sense. One sentence was very clear. "Are you ready for us?" The world was shocked by this sentence. They asked us, "Are we ready?" But no one could give a clear answer. Given the preparation, research, and effort involved, was this what humanity was really ready to deal with? The governments of Earth decided to answer the message. A message was prepared by the United Nations on behalf of all nations. We are ready for peace. We are ready to welcome you. And the message went out into space. While everybody was waiting with bated breath, a second signal came from the ship. "So are we." These two words said it all for the most fantastic moment in the history of humankind. This was exactly the place where everything began to spiral completely out of control. Subsequent to the second signal, a series of jamming began to take place in the upper atmosphere of Earth. Satellite systems malfunctioned, radars went dead. Communication networks across the globe started going down one by one. Electronic gadgets were breaking down without warning. It seemed as though some sort of invisible force was neutralizing all technology above Earth. At first, there was some uncertainty whether this was something related to the aliens. But soon the whole world knew what was going on. The aliens were testing the technology of Earth. But this test was now slowly emerging as an attack. Within a few hours, all the military satellites and missile defense systems were disabled. Fighter jets were not operating in tandem with the radar data, and communication lines practically got cut off from the world. The unexpected encounter. Governments began to activate their emergency plans. But everybody was stuck in a dilemma. Was this an attack by the aliens or some sort of test? But things quickly spiraled out of control. Along with the collapse of electronic systems, chaos broke out on Earth. Power outages started in cities, and security systems failed. Meanwhile, there was still an invisible ship in the sky. People were in panic. The United Nations held an emergency meeting. The scientists, state heads, and army generals all came together for a common venue. Everybody was discussing the course of action that should be taken. Nobody knew what the aliens wanted, but everybody feared something. Was this the beginning of an invasion? Illusion or reality? Meanwhile, a team of scientists was trying to figure out why the aliens were attacking Earth's communication systems. They launched an investigation into the source of this signal. What they found out was very shocking. The ship wasn't even what it had appeared to be. The signals and disturbing actions made up a system meant to trick Earth's technology. It was a test by the aliens on the capability to defend and attack, and they were testing our dependence on technology. Be that as it may, this technology was only just the beginning. The new signal radiated to all the satellites orbiting Earth. It showed them the origin of this signal, which had rendered all their devices inoperable. But what was even more interesting was that this signal was coming from inside Earth underground. Even the spaceship was not in orbit. These events were being controlled by some sort of entity deeply hidden inside Earth. This was something governments trying to analyze before starting military actions. Nobody knew what that entity was and for what purpose it was in Earth's atmosphere. The clear thing was that aliens could come here much earlier than we think. And what had been perceived as first contact was, in fact, the resurfacing of an ancient contact about which humanity didn't know a thing. Questions without end. This was the terrifying finding by world leaders and scientists alike. If the aliens had already been on Earth, were we really meeting them for the first time? Or was this first contact based upon a much older, deeper history? The alien ship was yet to be seen, but signals showed that a force remained on Earth. Electronics shut down, and man was racing to know what this mysterious entity was. What once seemed a harmless contact now became the gateway towards a far more sinister question. Maybe aliens didn't just come to make peace, since their presence was about to cast a long shadow on the history of mankind. A deep menace. The signals being all from within Earth were what sent the globe into more panic and chaos. Now, a big question was what lay behind those signals. More importantly, how long these entities or beings had been kept hidden in Earth. Aliens, we thought, came from space and may have lain in wait deep among the workings of the planet for thousands of years. The governance started acting with urgency, holding emergency meetings across secret military bases worldwide. Scientists desperately tried to pinpoint the exact source of the signal. All clues led to the bottom of the ocean. Powerful electromagnetic waves, emanating from a point very deep inside the Pacific Ocean, created interference that disrupted all satellites and communication systems around the Earth. The submarine operation. The United Nations, therefore, decided to mount forth with a submarine operation. The most powerful submarines in the world were assigned to plunge into the deep ocean and research this mysterious source of signals. The teams consisted of scientists and experienced military personnel. This mission of discovery could reveal one of the biggest unknowns in human history. With one's breath held, the submarines began a descent into one of the ocean's most bottomless points. People from all over the world watched this operation on screen live. This signal grew stronger and stronger as they neared the bottom of the ocean. The radars and sonar systems within the submarines continuously detected strange electromagnetic anomalies throughout this area. Finally, the submarines reached the target zone. They were speechless about what they saw. A huge structure lay at the bottom of the ocean. A metallic structure that glowed just beneath the surface, which didn't look like anything from Earth, was now before them. The structure didn't look like any alien technology humanity had ever seen or even imagined. It was like a huge spaceship had lain buried beneath the Earth for thousands of years. The alien's true face. As the submarine teams came closer to it, the signal got all the time stronger. One thing became certain in any case. The structure was not passively inactive. Conversely, it gave the impression of a sleeping organism which was just waiting to wake up. A large door or entrance was observed on the surface of the structure. The instant it did so, as the team was in motion to get a closer look at this point, there was a sudden shooting out of a beam of light from the ship. The deep ocean was illuminated with bright blue light, and the signal suddenly was broadcasting at an even higher frequency. In that moment, all the submarine's electronic systems were shutting down fast. It was as if the structure was releasing a magnetic field interfering with the submarine's technological mechanisms. The crew began to panic and tried to radio a message to the surface. All communications went dead. This structure could so easily nullify the technology on which humanity relied. The submarines became completely incapacitated, trapped in the middle of the ocean. Inside, the sense of fear and helplessness began to grow. The only thing the crew could do was try to understand what this structure was. Then, motion appeared on displays inside the submarines. From within that structure, an alien entity began to emerge. These beings were not at all like humans. They were tall, thin, with smooth skin, and with eyes reflecting deep darkness. It was as if these creatures could see inside the submarine. The real enemy appears. Working in the water, the entities made little attempt to swim, as if water was more natural to them than anything else. The animals set their gaze on the vessel. Their intentions were being read by the crewmen until it was rather clear that they did not come in peace. It felt as though the creatures formed some kind of energy barrier around the submarine, completely immobilizing the submarine. Inside, the crew tried with their devices to record these energy waves, but they made no sense of them. All devices were offline, and communication with Earth was totally severed. What were these creatures' intentions? Why had they stayed hidden on Earth for so long? And then, as if all these discoveries weren't enough, one of the scientists on the submarine advanced the following hypothesis. These could have been creatures which came to Earth millions and millions of years ago and simply stayed here. Maybe they had interfered in the course of development on Earth in secret. We felt ourselves to be Earth's lords, but the submerged people were here well before us. But why did they appear now? Was it human progress in technology that awakened them? A dark legacy. While world leaders and scientists tried to find some solution to this situation from the ground, events under the sea started getting out of hand. It was time now that these creatures were to be confronted directly by the crew of this submarine. This, however, was not to be a friendly confrontation. Energy waves of some type were sent through the submarine by the creatures, which knocked the crew unconscious. Human brain waves could not function with this energy, and the crew went out cold in no time. Meanwhile, events on the ground started to happen in similar fashion. This signal coming from the oceans did not only affect the submarines, but turned into a frequency impacting all humans anywhere in the world. Humans all over the globe started to feel dizzy and fall unconscious. It was as if this signal had direct control over humanity. This was no ordinary revelation. Humanity had, unknowingly, been at their mercy for a few millennia, and in a single instant, it was again. These beings were on the move to regain control over humanity, molding Earth's future according to their design. Earth was not just a planet anymore. It was a great laboratory these beings had claimed as their own long ago, a moment of choice. While world leaders and scientists went into a frantic search for a solution, the submarine crew faced these entities in person. Communication was down, but for sure, these beings came with a purpose. No longer was humanity just an inhabitant of Earth. They had become subjects in an experiment by these beings. Submarine Commander Elena Navarro soon realized that these beings were not only observing them, but also trying to take control of the human mind. One by one, crew members fell unconscious or lost themselves until Elena was the last one left. Dizzy, with some kind of growing darkness clouding her brain, she knew she had to resist. Giving in to these beings' power would spell doom on the fate of humanity into darkness. Well, soon the screens in the submarine began to stir once again. The beings had somehow manipulated their electronic systems to send a message through them. There were symbols and figures coming up on that screen, in some ancient language nobody knew. But Elena had seen those symbols before. They looked just like the language of a lost civilization that had left a trace on Earth millions of years ago. As Elena tried to decipher these symbols, She herself was in the middle of a fierce, inner turmoil. The energy waves the creatures were sending pierced through her consciousness. It was as if a voice from the very bottom of her mind whispered, "Surrender to us, for humanity is but a phase that has passed. We have returned." As Elena heard these whispers in her mind, she understood something deep inside. These beings had come to Earth long before human history ever began. They had come to Earth after their own planet was destroyed and had gone into hibernation. As humanity developed, these beings had only waited. It had now become crystal clear. The technologies and intelligences of humanity had woken them up. A new war for Earth. While the isolation in the submarine increased, the scientists on the surface realized that creatures could not bear the chaos of a human mind. The manipulative powers of the beings suffer in opposition to the emotional intricacy created by humans. Elena had noticed this weakness during her resistance. And so, the world leaders, who were very much aware of this mental battle now, went on to enforce a very extreme measure. The global defense system was activated, along with Project Helios, an undercover technology that could tap into the deeper levels of human consciousness and manipulate it. It had never been tested on such a large scale, though. This was highly dangerous. The psychological collapse of the entire human race might have occurred from this technology, but there was no alternative, and this risk had to be taken by humanity. The final battle. It was Elena's personal resistance that called into being this global conflict. Project Helios replayed signals back to the beings, further enriching the inner intricateness of the human mind. And with people becoming conscious again, the mental fight between people and the creatures began to grow. The aliens realized that people could resist them in unexpected ways and began to retreat. But this did not yet mean they had been defeated. They had been rolled back, but only for the time being. Under Elena's command, the submarine crew regained control of their submarine and freed themselves from the trenches. For the moment, human beings had won, but unmistakably, it was just a transient victory. The monsters were out there somewhere, waiting for an opportune moment to cause disaster, still burrowed beneath the Earth's crust. State of humanity. Elena Navarro and the submarine team returned to a world facing the aftereffects of chaos. Project Helios had evaded an immediate disaster that humanity was prepared for, but no one was really taking this as something further. Aliens retreated to everybody. That only meant their attack had paused. The first battle of humanity was won. A much larger war loomed on the horizon, and the world gradually began to heal. All the same, Elena and several of the highest-ranking scientists were still convinced that the true nature of the threat had not been understood. Humanity had created a defense through its mental complexity, but that was only the first step. A larger scheme was required because the beings would come back, better prepared. The true plan revealed. Elena was summoned into a secret meeting of the United Nations. Present in the room were world leaders, military officers, and scientists. The mood in the room was heavy and tense. Everyone's eyes fell upon Elena. She was the only person who had contact with the beings. Her experience was the only key to humanity's future. Elena explained that the aliens had conducted an experiment on humanity through mental attacks for a very long time. These beings, for hundreds of years, observed and guided the evolution of human beings, manipulating the minds and emotions of humans. But humans were emotional, hence giving very unexpected results in the experiment. The greatest weakness of the beings was chaos and uncertainty within the human mind. Elena had noticed that weakness, which gave humanity some chances to fight. Yet Elena also knew the aliens would not stop with just a mental battle. The awakening of humanity. As the weeks grew into months, the mood of the world began to shift. The initial shock of the alien encounter wore off, but gave way to a deep-seated sense of urgency. In one unified attempt, joined together governments and scientists tried to comprehend the threat that had been so clearly presented to the people of Earth. The remnants of the structures destroyed at the ocean floor were studied, as was every shred of data collected during the encounter. The leader of this joint venture at the moment is Elena Navarro, at the head of a team of relentless researchers, military strategists, and engineers. Their missions are accomplished day and night, aiming to understand all aspects of alien technology and ways of countering their much advanced capabilities. Development of new technologies. The main focuses were on developing a means of canceling the alien signals out, which at one point had paralyzed all Earth systems. This had meant that the research tried to find protective means against future attacks for satellites, communication systems, and all military assets. They were to work out the energy manipulation techniques used by aliens with the hope of making their guns to fight whenever such happens in the future. Meanwhile, Elena and her team studied the incomprehensible, strange symbols and messages that the aliens sent their way. Their experience was that such communications held the key to the aliens' motives and vulnerabilities. Piecing together the ancient language of these beings, they had begun decoding messages telling them something about the aliens' long history on Earth and how they interacted with humanity in times past. The rise of unity. Meanwhile, as more scientific progress was made, the politics changed too. That is, nations that hitherto had mostly acted unilaterally were gradually beginning to share ideas and efforts closer than ever. The aliens' threat unified humanity in ways previously unimaginable as old rivalries melted away in the face of this new menace. In this season of new cooperation, international summits had sat in session to devise strategies for any possible future encounters. They knew that the very survival of humanity depended on the leaders' capability for unity not only against the aliens, but also in tackling the social and environmental problems besetting the planet. This unparalleled union sparked a movement across the world toward peace, sustainability, and the sharing of knowledge. The return of the shadows. But as preparations went on, rumors of the aliens' return began to spread. There were reports of strange phenomena, unexplained power outages, and electromagnetic disturbances once again across the globe. Scientists closely monitored the signals, knowing full well that at any moment the aliens could attack. One night, poring over the data from their latest research, a new signal burst through the static. Similar to the early communications, it was embedded with a far greater degree of complex latent urgency and one clear message: we have returned. Prepare for the reckoning. A chill ran down Elena's spine. The aliens had not been sitting around. They watched, weighed, and readied their course of action. The fact began to sink in. A feeling of panic began to rise among world leaders. The aliens had returned, and they were not merely seeking contact. They were preparing for confrontation. The gathering storm. At this new threat, the United Nations convened an emergency meeting wherein leaders from around the world gathered to discuss a defense strategy in coordination with one another. Military forces went into high alert, and the development of new technologies accelerated. Resources and knowledge were shared among nations, pooling all learned from the first encounter. Elena stood in front of the assembly and was briefing their findings. We need to know their technology, their weak points, and their intentions. Maybe a way to obstruct their plans, in case we do manage to decode their signals. Her voice was full of conviction, thus giving confidence to the leaders. We must prepare for a battle that goes beyond the technological, she said. We must unify not only our defenses, but also our wills. We have faced the darkness once before. We can do it again. But we must hurry. The power of mankind awakens. As the leaders were brainstorming, Elena rounded up her team to think of ways to tap into the emotional and mental resilience of humanity. Elena firmly believed that the strong points of humanity lay in the variance of thought, creativity, and the depth of their emotions, something the aliens seemed not to understand. It was then that the team began building a system that amplified human emotion and collective consciousness, later to be termed Unity Resonance. This system was a powerhouse to shatter the conventional ways of aliens' manipulations within the minds of humans. A global mental network that would surge into action at critical moments in time, channeling humanity's hopes, dreams, and experiences into one single, unified force. Elena had done experiments in this direction by simulating through virtual reality various ways the meetings with the aliens might take place. Different emotional stimuli were tried to assess their after effects in reinforcing the mental network. The result was astounding to find that united they stood, united in purpose. The emanation collectively received and magnified was an effect which reverberated beyond earthly dimensions. the calm before the storm. As the time neared, counting down to what was hopefully going to be an alien confrontation, Earth finally united as one in a way it never had before. The Unity Resonance Project worked a coming together of people from every walk of life to share experiences, emotions, and energies with one another. Hope, determination, and beneath, a current of anxiety electrified the air. Anticipation and fear built in Elena as the day approached. Nations were preparing their defenses, placing armed forces, and scientists were putting the last touches on their devices. Yet she felt it too, a change in humanity, an awakening of sorts, the acknowledgement of what people truly were capable of. They were beginning to understand that their true power didn't come from technology or arms, but from each other. Day of reckoning. At long last, the day finally arrived. The sun rose over the horizon, casting a gold glow over the world, and a deep silence reigned. The leaders were in their command centers, the military personnel were positioned, and the scientists were at their signals monitoring posts. The air was thick with anticipation, and literally, the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. Suddenly, the skies darkened, and this enormous ship appeared from the clouds. It was an awesome sight, a thing of beauty and terror. The ship, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, was bathed in an otherworldly light, sending shadows across the landscape. There was automatic engagement of the Unity Resonance Network, bringing individuals together into a shared worldwide moment. Elena stood at the command center, her heart pounding. She could feel the energy of millions of people flowing through her. A wave of emotion surged towards the alien vessel. It was as if the moment brought space and time together, a waking of the collective spirit of humanity. The confrontation. While the ship hovered above the planet, it began to emit several signals, all complex, intricate patterns running in a musical way across the air. Elena and her crew were racing against time, decoding these signals in real time. They eventually understood that while the aliens were trying to communicate, they were also testing the response of humanity. Activate the Unity Resonance. Elena instructed, her tone even as stone amidst the chaos. The network flared into life, and the combined emotional energy of humanity erupted into the atmosphere. Hope, courage, and determination combined with each other, thereby weaving a shield of protection around the planet. The alien ship faltered, its lights blinking as if it strained against this energy source emanating from Earth. Elena watched, wide-eyed with wonder, as the ship started responding to the resonance. The complex patterns of the alien signals shifted and morphed into a language that could be understood by humanity. It then dawned that the aliens were not just some sort of conquerors here, but sought something deeper in the connection and experience between the bridge of worlds. A new understanding. In that epiphanic moment, Elena realized encounter could be reformed. Aliens were not just a menace, but an intelligent race with lives and motivations. Perhaps they, too, struggled for survival, like humanity did. She panted sharply and transmitted through the Unity Resonance Network, "We are not your enemies. We seek understanding and connection. Let us meet in peace." And while these words pulsed across the collective mind, a miracle occurred. The lights of the alien ship morphed from menacing to welcoming, the kaleidoscope flashing around Earth. The signals grew slower, harmonious, pulsing with the sense of hope and peace. A new alliance. After an eternity, the ship finally began to sink, very slow and still floating above Elena's head and the command center. The tension in the air moved from fear to curiosity. Elena and her team stood ready, prepared for a conversation. A path of light flared open from the ship, and from within emerged a being, tall, stately, and in his very aura exuding wisdom. It looked upon Elena with eyes that could hold the depth of time and knowledge. "We have watched you," said the being, with a voice full of harmonious understanding. "We have watched your defeats and your triumphs. We don't come to conquer, but to learn. Can you share your story with us?" Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding but full of purpose. "We are ready to share, but we must also understand your intentions. Together, we can explore the mysteries of the universe, learn from one another, and find a path forward. The air was thick with life, as both species started communicating with one another about their knowledge and experiences. Those very fears that drove them apart actually became a strong bond, a partnership forged in understanding, a new era of mankind. This was the beginning of a new phase for humanity, from loneliness to struggles altogether, as one part of an entirety that encompassed people from every corner of the world. Alongside the aliens as their comrades, humanity would venture among the stars, sharing knowledge, technology, and wisdom. She looked up to the alien ship, knowing that the path ahead of them was going to be nowhere near easy. There were going to be some rough days coming their way, and not everybody in the universe was going to like their dream of unification. United they would stand, ready for whatever was to come through a communal spirit awakened in them. Yet the true battle was not just against a foreign threat, but for the very essence of humanity itself. And it was in that battle that they had discovered the greatest strength, each other. The infinite journey. In this new era of cooperation and exploration, Elena thought about the lessons that were learned from her contact with the alien beings. The story of humanity went further than the mere struggle to survive, but was now one of connection, understanding, and growth. Guided by the stars and a promise of a better future, humankind and their newfound allies deeper into space, bound to make a journey of discovery together. Thus, the journey just started, boundless with possibilities. In this boundless universe, they would seek not only knowledge, but also that deep understanding beyond their differences, a legacy which would echo across time as they ventured into the endlessness. What had once been a tale of fear and war was now one of harmony, standing strong, and a beacon of hope, a true testament to the spirit of humanity living, to rise above the bad times and reach out across the universe. Together, they would continue their story, one filled with discovery and adventure, and the unbreakable bonds of kinship.